In this video, I'm going to break down why Overwatch is the hardest first-person shooter, and compare it to many of the top FPS today, like Counter-Strike, Apex, Valorant, and more, to prove exactly why this game is so damn difficult. But if you enjoy the content, do me a huge solid and smash that like, subscribe, and let's jump into the video. It's no big secret that our pro players in Overwatch go on to other titles and other games and often do incredibly well at a disproportionate rate. They learn skills in Overwatch, they test themselves in Overwatch, and the skills they learn, they go and can take it to another game and just kind of dominate that game. But why does this happen? What is it about Overwatch that prepares people to do so damn well? And I would argue that Overwatch is just incredibly freaking hard when you compare it to pretty much every other FPS that people are playing right now and actively grinding. And it's actually really clear why Overwatch is so damn hard when you break it down into these three categories. And number one is its complexity. Overwatch has a ton of complexity for an FPS shooter. Not only do we have a ton of different abilities, a ton of different unique heroes that don't all share the same weapons, but they're all just different. Every firing is different. There's a lot to learn when you just hop into Overwatch. All of y'all know just how much it takes to even just get okay at Overwatch when you first start. It's really, really hard. And then there's a mastery to it where you learn every cooldown, every character, every interaction, every effective range, and it can take a long time. And it's not that far off from other games like MOBAs, right? Where they're very complex. In fact, I would say that they're actually way more complex than Overwatch. But when it comes to a shooter, Overwatch is one of the most complex that are on the market right now. There are some other games that do have some amount of complexity like Apex, but I don't think it holds a candle to the sheer volume and differences in every single character like Overwatch has, which is just a very, very complex game. Not saying that complexity is better, but it does add a difficulty in the game, and that's one of the reasons why Overwatch takes a while to learn. But that's not really what makes Overwatch the hardest game, because really aiming is the hardest in Overwatch. And the reason specifically that aiming is so hard in Overwatch relative to other games is because of the relationship between aim and movement that Overwatch has that other games does not. In Overwatch, if you move instantaneously. There's no delay. You press left, you move left. You press right, you move right. Every other game has some form of delay in place when you're pressing left or right or shifting directions. In addition to that, there's no penalty in Overwatch for crouching. There's no penalty for Overwatch for jumping. So what that means is that you can left, right, jump, up and down, and you are still hitting people perfectly accurately, and that encourages other people to move all the time. So not only are you trying to hit people in the head or consistently that are moving like psychopaths because they don't have a penalty, but you also are moving like a psychopath and you still have to hit those shots. This is why when you look at highlights in Overwatch, some of the crazy plays that pros pull off, it's like a crazy movement into a flick that was like pixel perfect. You look at like a play in Apex, most of the time it's two people engaging, maybe there's a slide over somebody, and then it's like a very, very smooth tracking, right? That's typically how the fights go. It's nowhere near as flicky, as chaotic, as much movement as a battle in Overwatch. And it's similar for Valorant, although there is quite a bit of flicks in Valorant. You're definitely aiming quite a bit, but as far as how much you're moving, it's so little. You're not both moving like crazy and aiming like crazy and aiming at people that are moving like crazy. Now, those games aren't trying to be the hardest game in the world mechanically to play, right? A lot of the beauty in games like Counter-Strike and Valorant is in the repetition. The learning and execute a perfect strategy round after round. But when we look at Overwatch, though, when you push that game to the mechanical limit, the shots that you have to start hitting and how mechanically good you become is just insanely high compared to other FPS titles, just because that's what's needed to perform. Now, it's not just that, because in other shooters, there's a certain level of consistency in like every single time you're engaging, every single time you're fighting and firing, and there's not really that consistency in Overwatch. Because of the different abilities and a lot of them being skill shots that travel at different speeds and operate in different ways, right? Projectile, hit scan. This makes it so you could walk into a fight and be forced to hit a lot of different types of shots as the fight plays out in a way that you never would have to in any other FPS. Like, let's say you walk into a fight as on a fight that you're losing big time and you shoot someone twice that is flying through the air. It's like a freaking Mercy with your gun. You sleep a tracer that is trying to one clip you from behind after you 180 speed, and then you throw a lob nade really far back, and you hit 2 people in the back line. The idea is, like, not only are you mechanically performing all of these on characters that are moving like crazy, but you're doing them with abilities that are all different. They all operate differently, and they all move at different speeds, right? And they all operate in different ways, right? The rifle scoping is hit scan. The sleep dart is a projectile that operates at 1 speed in a straight line, and then the nade is an arc that operates at a completely different speed. And while this can occasionally happen in some other shooters, nowhere near to this extent, and it can kind of go even above and beyond, where there's certain characters that just have you operate on a completely different axis. Like, imagine like an Echo going in, being forced to track perfectly with her beam, and then copy a character that just has a completely different set of mechanical skills that you have to adapt to and use on the fly and use it well. Which means that Overwatch players have to learn to be adaptable. And it's really difficult to be adaptable in a game that is so freaking complex with so much to learn that is mechanically very hard. But I did really want to make this video because a lot of people that come to Overwatch or are trying to learn it are frustrated because they're good at other games. They know that they're good at these other games, or they're decent. They come to Overwatch and they feel like a fish out of water. They not only are performing bad just in the game due to the knowledge gap, but they are just mechanically performing worse than they feel like they ever have. They felt like they were really good at Call of Duty. They feel like they were really good at another shooter, and then they come to Overwatch and they just feel like they're really bad. And it's because Overwatch is just so freaking hard. I promise you, Overwatch is one of the few games that the gods of aiming, you know, people that are just really known for just being mechanically good and really good at games in general, they can't just jump into Overwatch and dominate. Just like they could jump in pretty much any other FPS and just be insane, you can't just jump into Overwatch out of nowhere and be good at all. You would know nothing. And even mechanically, some of the shots that you have to hit are just ridiculously hard. I want you to think about like a Widowmaker that has to hit a Tracer that is all up on them. Not only is that a really hard flick to hit at times, that can be really difficult, but it's under a ton of pressure where you have a very small window of time to hit the shot or else you just die. So very hard mechanical shot combined with a ton of movement, combined with the crazy amount of pressure, and that is a recipe for just some crazy hard moments. Now, I do want to also make it clear that I'm not talking bad about people that grind these other games, or I'm not even talking bad about these other games. A lot of these games are not trying to be complex, and in fact, there's a lot of complexity and mechanical complexity even that I don't even think necessarily is healthy for a game. Being able to crouch spam and be perfectly accurate, I don't even really think that that's good for the health of a game, but it does make a game harder. It does make a game more difficult to play and aim in, and that's what we're talking about today. Not what's better for balance, not what makes the most sense, not what's the most fun game, just what game is the hardest to master. What is the hardest game to pick up? I mean, I would say that Overwatch is both the hardest game to pick up and learn and the hardest game to master simultaneously. It's just a really hard game, so if anyone is really trying to learn the game, grind the game, realize that your skills will transfer over with you. You're gonna be just fine if you ever move on to another game. And 2, it's okay that you're struggling. Everyone does when they are learning Overwatch, and will continue to struggle because we're under Blizzard's thumb. Anyways, thank you so much for enjoying the video. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments down below, and I'll see y'all next time.